Hello everyone, this is Maciej Kociołkowski, welcoming you from Punta Gorda, Florida, by the historical train depot. We staged again, as every second Saturday of the month, climate engineering awareness booth. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the global warming and or climate change and its relation to the climate engineering, how the two are basically conjoined at the hip, if you will. First of all, this brings us to the point that any discussion about climate change, global warming, is really no valid if the factor of such magnitude like climate engineering is omitted from this discussion. So it always needs to be included in it. And similarly, if we discuss the climate engineering, the chemical ice nucleation component of climate engineering needs to be also included in it. Now, even at this late stage of the game, there is still a great deal of confusion and argument concerning the true state of our planet's climate. And why is that, one could ask? Well, one answer to that is that changes like diminishing and now disappearing Arctic ice or deforestation, species die-off, just to name a few, happen over long periods of time, over several decades, even centuries or longer. And although this is a blink of an eye in geological terms, it might be an entire length of an individual's life. And we tend to kind of overlook those kind of changes, favoring, noticing those that happen, overnight rather quickly, that are really difficult to miss. Another obvious reason is that vast majority of people know little to nothing about planet's climatic system and what influences them. And that unfortunately includes scores of individuals in academia, governmental agencies, environmental organizations, politicians, all sorts of talking heads and media commentators, and unfortunately including most of alternative media as well. Ego, in so many times, not only replaces objective research and investigation, but simply does not allow to state something like, something utterly simple, like I don't know. It is not I'm not an expert of this. It is not my forte. Okay, and really stating that in so many cases would be so helpful. There is no shame or embarrassment saying simply that I don't know. So I'm not gonna lay claims. On top of that, we have all sorts of centrally or privately funded, mainly by heavily industries, special interests which deliberately distort the message, seeking division and confusion of the population on this subject. If this part does not come as a surprise, the fact that almost nobody has it right in alternative media and even among anti-climate engineering activists is disappointing and inexcusable. So let's look at the biggest factors influencing our planet's climatic system and also the most common pitfalls leading so many to erroneous conclusions. So our sun and its distance to our home planet is the main contributor to all miracle of life and its diversity we experience and cherish. Presence and composition of our atmosphere is the other one. First of these factors remains mostly constant throughout the lifespan of our planet, the other does not. Other factors influencing our climate include, but are not limited to, any natural or man-made changes to composition of our atmosphere. For instance, large volcano eruption would be in the first category. Constant influx of greenhouse gases from our industrial civilization would be the other. Any deliberate manipulation of Earth's climatic system by any means, like climate engineering, And here I want to mention, before I go any further, that this is where our climate science community falls so short, in my view, deliberately, in the narrative. Our industrial civilization is all-inclusive to them. They just won't single out climate engineering, Many of them will deny it. Most of them, I would say. Meaning they will not simply single out climate engineering, what I just said, out of it. Most of them will deny it. It's ongoing reality. That distorted view must be corrected if we want to have a full picture of the state of our climate. If all, or at least the vast majority of alternative media and anti-climate engineering community was standing on a solid data with the conclusions in relation to the reality of global warming, that would help to provide a uniting platform with climate science community. If we, on the other hand, are all over the place, perpetuating completely erroneous statements like global cooling, ice age coming, or even that there is nothing wrong with the climate rather than climate engineering, then no scientists will associate themselves with us and put their career on the line. And this is very important point. And I'm not defending the denial, but what choice do we have? You know, we have to try at least to build bridges with them. So going back to climate shaping factors, well, perhaps one of the biggest is our oceans, the currents and what's going on with life in them, plankton in particular. Our cryosphere, so towards ice formations like glaciers. Our polar regions, in particular out of cryosphere, they play essential role in shaping Earth's climate. The saying that if we lose Arctic, we lose Earth is dire but true, you know. And by the way, we're about to lose it. The ice in the Arctic is hanging by the thread for the last few summers, mostly kept due to chemical ice nucleation efforts of completely out of control geoengineers. So these are the major influencing factors, again, by no means not the only ones. On top of them, now we have so-called feedback loops between the two, positive and negative. Positive feedback loops are in particular of great concerns. There are several dozens of those to my knowledge. Example of one would be methane release from the floor of a shallow Arctic Ocean. The hotter it gets, the more methane gets released. In turn, more methane in the atmosphere makes it hotter, perpetuating the cycle, sort of like a catch-22. At some point, these mechanisms become unstoppable and will set our planet on a runaway global warming course, meaning there is no turning back. Evidence abounds we are already in that stage. Well, are we or are we not? That's the big question, but whether the true timeline of our future, our predicament is not good. But if we can't know for sure, shouldn't we at least try to turn our climate around and thus our lives? The answer to this question, to any truly caring and life-loving individual, must be yes. And we turn it around starting with exposing and stopping climate engineering, hands down. If we don't do it, it will be game over very, very soon. I know one could say it's alarmist, but what if it's not? What if it's not? What if it's true? What then? So let's stop here for a second. Let's look at the sizable portion of scientific community and academia actually calling for deployment of climate engineering, or at least more research to be done. Well, do you guys see the immensity of the problem we're dealing here with? Deploying something that has been going on for 60, 70 years already, all evidence points out to. I mean, and those are the people that we trust and rely on with our opinions on the climate, our view on the climate situation. Calling for more research is equally treasonous, I would argue. Don't we already see the devastation, all the negative consequences, and the brink of extinction climate engineering brought us to? Not as the only factor, by no means, but as a major factor. 7 decades of research, quote-unquote research, is not enough. Just to back it up, just listen to several recent debates between geoengineeringwatch.org leading researcher Dane Wigington and mainstream climate scientists Doug McMartin and Paul Beckwith. Those two, although admitting to global warming, are so ridiculously grotesque in their adamant denial of climate engineering that one truly needs to hear it to believe it. I'm still thankful to them for coming to the debate, though. On the other pole of the spectrum are all sorts of gurus, talking heads, and business and others website commentators who do speak out against government criminality and in many cases against climate engineering. However, they deny global warming reality. Simply put, if government lies to us about so many things, and they do, then they must lie about global warming as well. Is this rational approach? Well, I would argue not, but I'll let you decide. To back that up, I encourage you to listen to another debate between again, Dane Wigington and Patrick Wood, the author of the Technocracy Rising. And I could relate and agree with a lot of what Patrick was saying in his debate. And his conclusions in reference to climate, however, were absolutely inexcusable. Find out for yourself. It is all those debates are available on geoengineeringwatch.org. They all happened earlier this year, I believe. So you can find it. So we have those two common opposed positions with everything in between, but for whatever mysterious reasons, we can't have it right in one person. Okay, so let's look now at some of the factors that lead so many to being so wrong on the state of the climate. First of all, remember, as I mentioned, there's nothing wrong or embarrassing in saying, I don't know, it is not my forte, I didn't study this enough. It really isn't. It really isn't. This way, you leave the bridge open. If you say something that is patently false, then you just have burned that possible bridge. The bridge we need to unite the camps, which we need to do in order to get climate engineering in the open, to stop it, basically. So the common pitfalls, first thing I hear is like that this is cyclical. Well, of course it's cyclical. Nobody is rationally denying it is cyclical. However, at current point in time, one has little to do with another. There are different length cycles that did and do still play a role in influencing our climate. However, statistical odds that current warming trend is of natural origin are practically zero. Let's take solar minimum and maximum cycle as an example here. Whichever the claim is we are now under, this cycle would be responsible for the amount of sun's rays entering our atmosphere but not exiting it. Our atmosphere composition, mainly increased greenhouse gases content, makes the planet to retain more heat and thus heating up regardless of the solar cycles. And and by the way, those solar cycles, the variation of them, it's not by much. It's something that would get dwarfed by, and it is, as a matter of fact, dwarfed if we are under some sort of solar minimum. It is dwarfed by the building greenhouse buildup, in our atmosphere. So another argument I hear is that the CO2 is good for us, and the more the better sometimes. And throughout Earth's history has much higher we had much higher content than we do now at times. And although this is true, and CO2 is essential for us and any life forms, gas, it is not toxic, as many claims, it is not. However, too much of it in the atmosphere does disrupt its balance. Okay, yes, we had much higher content of CO2 in our atmosphere previously, but not along with industrial civilization and 7 billion people population to feed. And also civilization, what it does, which impedes and destroys any and every mean of CO2 sequestration action. So couple those two together, that's just obviously not good. Our CO2 content is roughly 50% higher compared with pre-industrial levels. Add on top of that all other more potent greenhouse gases buildup, of which is also on the rise, and add Arctic and cryosphere meltdown, add deforestation, add shrinking habitat for all other inhabitants of the planet, and many other factors directly and indirectly related to our civilization. And now, considering all this, answer yourself one question. How long do you think it can continue? How long? And how can it not negatively impact our climate? Another argument is climate is changing but not necessarily warming. Well, that's the primary reason they changed the name global warming to climate change, because then technically you could go either way, and that just again is a factor in confusing and dividing population, which the power structure always seeks and always has been. Now, they did change global warming into climate change. This, although leaving more flexibility to use the term, confuses people even more for that reason. Record cold winter used as an excuse, and I talked about it a little bit more in my March video when I focused on a chemical ice nucleation component of climate engineering. Now, even if there is a place that truly experiences colder than average weather, which perhaps it is, I would imagine it is somewhere, we are talking about global warming, not local warming. Just for reference point, just imagine the whole North American continent, which is absolutely massive. It only accounts for about 3.5% surface of the planet. 3.5%. If you take like half of the United States, eastern half of the United States, it's only about 1.5 percentage point of the surface of the entire planet. So even if that whole part was colder, which is not, then is it still, well, not meaningful, but what's the word I'm looking for? Is it still kind of give you the true state of the climate of the planet? I would argue not. Now, Another argument I hear is there was a pause in global warming. Well, yes, it was between mid-40s to mid-70s, about due to initial cooling effects of aerosols in early deployment phase of climate engineering. Ever since the 80s, we steady heating up. Another argument is I don't feel it getting hotter. Well, there is there is this frog analogy thing that if you basically slowly heat up the vessel or pond, the frog is in, then you cook the frog. If you drop the frog in a very hot water, of course it will jump out, and that is also true to us. Well, here's the thing: the heat basically is hidden in the oceans. The same volume of water holds approximately 4,000 times thermal energy of the same volume of air, meaning that if all the thermal energy that's been built up in the oceans so far was released to the air, it would be already way too hot for us to live in any terrestrial species. But that simply is not reality. It is hidden in the ocean, and it can't be suddenly released, and it won't. But that does not mean that we are out of the woods. This is simply important factor to understand. Another argument I'm hearing is that, for instance, it's the global warming is a hoax. The ice age is coming, And how many times did you hear that? Well, is ice age coming? Well, if ice age is coming, then how come that even the any remaining ice on the Arctic is almost gone? I encourage you to back that point up, to watch the film documentary Chasing Ice. It might cost you a few dollars online, but it's available. I saw it a few years ago. Initially it was available for free, but it's definitely less than any movie ticket. So go watch that film, and then you really cannot deny it once you watch it. Well, in summary, I just want to say that I don't want anybody really to follow what I say, believe me or anybody else. But be objective, Approach issue with an open mind, and wherever evidence and data you find leads you, okay? No matter, it doesn't necessarily, and it most likely won't lead you to the place you would want it to lead you, but nevertheless, if it's real, then, and even if it's not pleasant, this is the reality, and we have to face it, okay? And don't just blindly follow somebody else's opinions or conclusions just because it feels good. That's just not a rational approach. Okay, that's all I pretty much have for today. I just I thought it's important to recognize accelerating global warming as real, and credibility is the key. Arm yourself with credible data. Again, I wanted to and pass it on, share it with others. I wanted again to express my thanks to the Punta Gorda Trade Depot and to Historical Society of Punta Gorda for allowing me to stage this awareness booth. I'm gonna jump now behind the camera really quick so I can show you guys the booth. Since it's like 100 degrees out, I was basically sitting under the tent. So, but this is our booth. There you go. We've got some banners. We have free informational flyers, free informational booklets, DVDs, you name it. Everything here is being basically given away. We sell nothing. Again, I recommend geoengineeringwatch.org. Here it is as a source of information, the best website I've been able to find on a topic up to date. And again, from Punta Gorda, Florida, this is Maciej Kociołkowski. Thanks for watching.